this is a 1930 Oakland V8 engine. And I just gotta say, this thing is kind of in rough shape. As you can see, this thing is really rusted over and will really need some work if it's ever gonna run again. Now, for those who don't know what an Oakland V8 engine is, you're not the only one, because these are really rare. This came out of a car that is out in the backyard from the 30s. Hence, they're really rare, and there's a few weird things about this. First of all, this is where the heads would go. Now, this is a flathead engine. Kinda. I don't know if you can see, but that's not flat. It's at a 45-degree angle. Let me show you. This is one of the heads, and as you can see, it is not flat, which makes it a really weird engine. But the 45-degree head and mating surface is not the only thing that makes this engine weird. Look closely and see how these valves go. There's the heads to one on one side, and there's the head to the other. It's horizontal, meaning both valves on each side are straight across from each other. Another weird and interesting thing about that engine and the Oakland car is there's a big giant rod that shoves itself from the engine to the frame of the car. This was apparently to stop vibration of the car and the engine. Yeah, I've got no idea either. And there's a whole bunch of other things that make this engine weird. Like this is a big side piece for the engine, and it would sit right here. But the thing is, I have no idea what this weird doohickey is. And I believe that this is a crankcase breather. I've never seen one like that. You guys might be wondering what that freakishly, hulkishly large engine block produces for horsepower. A measly 80. Now hopefully, my plan is to get that engine going, as well as restore the car. But there's just one big problem. This is a 93-year-old car and engine, and it's rare. Finding information, at least the little I've found, is near to impossible. And finding parts, the chances of finding parts are slim to none. But there is hope, because I've got another engine block, and a whole other set of parts. So I'm hoping with the combined 2 engine blocks and spare parts, I can at least get one engine going. But that still leaves the whole car itself. Think of cars like the Model A and pretty much any car from the 30s. They were all kind of built the same way. You built a wooden skeleton for the cab, and the sedan, the passengers, all the compartments of the car out of wood, like a skeleton. After you had the basic skeleton done, you would then place the metal sheet panels on, nailing them in and screwing them in. It was a pretty interesting way to make cars, and it kind of makes it tricky to restore one if you don't know what you're doing. But do any of us? It just takes a lot of time and patience. But to add on to my plan, see, my plan is to find all the parts that make up the engine. There are a few good pictures out there that I can get a good sense of how many parts and what parts are needed for one complete engine. Like this back panel. We've got the starter bolt that you would use to hand crank it if you needed to. Luckily, this car was equipped with a starter and an electric ignition and starting system. There's a gear. Now, the thing that I've done so far with all these cast iron parts is I have put them in evaporust, because every single part does not look like that. It looks like that. Even the valves and the springs all had to go through evaporust. And with finding every single little part that I need and rebuilding it one at a time, I'm hoping I can have an accumulation of ready-to-go parts, and then I will have to work on the body and the car. But I'm hoping that will ease a little bit of pain in the ass work for whichever body shop, or not body shop, a machine shop I can hopefully find to machine this engine. That's the biggest problem. is because of that weird angled head, those horizontal valves, that weird bar that shoves itself into the frame. There's a lot of weird things going on here. I'm hoping the more I can find a single good part, evapo rust it, clean it up, paint it, put it away. Hopefully, this just makes this job a little bit easier. For example, here are the valve covers. Now this one has been fully painted. Well, actually not, just one side. The other one's currently painted, but there's just a lot of parts that need to be gone through. Like, here's a good example of another part. This is the pipe that would go on to one of the holes where the manifold goes for the carburetor, and this would connect to the carburetor. There would be one on each side of the engine. These are part of the valve assembly. You would put your valve in, you'd put your spring in, and then your retainers, and I think this would, I don't know where it goes, but it somehow sandwiches itself into that whole assembly. Here's a couple examples of the gigantic and ancient Babbitt bearings for the crankcase. Some of the very beautiful big headlight rings. And just for the hell of it, I'll go ahead and show you some of the other parts to this thing. A fine example of the giant and very weird crankshaft. Comment down below if you can spot what is so weird about this thing. Here be a wee little piston, as well as a few others over there. Got a part of the distributor assembly, and also a generator and the fan combined to cool the radiator. This may or may not be the starter, maybe? I don't know. I don't know what that weird device is either. And you've got a big giant oil pan right here. You've got the plate that goes in between the transmission and the engine. And if I move this big giant piece of insulation, there is the intake manifold. Looks kind of like a spider. And here's the top of the distributor cap and the wires that go to the spark plugs. That is another engine component, something that goes internally. A few other mishmash pieces of parts. And the always beautiful giant bucket headlights. So yeah, if I'm ever to try and get this thing up and going, I'm going to need to be very patient and take my time. This is 93-year-old technology. Not a lot of people know how to tango with 93-year-old technology. But that's not going to stop me from trying. I'm not going to give up. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more content. And Yamasaki out. We'll see y'all later.